Welcome to the 180th episode of News Dump, where we run through the hottest topics in the Lewis County news scene and discuss. I'm local man Aaron VanTuyl, joined tonight by Chronicle Executive Editor Eric Schwartz, and a guest, first-timer on the program. We have Jami Lund. Jami is the host of Let's Talk About It on KELA Mondays and Fridays. And Jami, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, of course. I love listening to this program, and so it's been a thrill to get invited to talk to you. But I am talking to you because I'm the chair of the Public Health and Human Services Advisory Board. And today, all the rage, of course, is the needle exchange policy that the county is considering.
It is. And, of course, we have some public health questions. Whether various behaviors of ours.
I'm not going to comment on a rash or anything like that, so just keep your shirt down.
Aaron's lifting his shirt over here.
You know I always podcast in the buff.
It's like having a classier local man on. It really is.
How dare you?
You always introduce you. It's like local man. No.
Well, I mean, yeah, local dirtbag, I guess.
Yeah, it's more accurate.
Jami, it's great to have you here. We're excited to mix things up a little bit, and you have a special insight into one of the stories we're talking about today. But we'll get to that in a minute. We're also joined in spirit by sponsors Summit Funding, Chehalis Outfitters, and The Roof Doctor. And first, we have a preamble. This is a news item that's not particular to Lewis County or even originated in the Chronicle, but it was something that all three of us stumbled across independently and discussed at length in some capacity. So the headline, Montana man used animal tissue and testicles to breed giant sheep for sale to hunting preserves. And, I'll just open it up there. I'm clicking the link on the story, and there's a picture of a ram, and this is awesome.
I mean, it's right there in the lead. He legally used tissue and testicles from wild sheep killed by hunters in Central Asia and the U.S.
Kyrgyzstan.
Imported
from Kyrgyzstan. That's among the things that got him in trouble, was sneaking biological material across the border, and that's one of the penalties that the guy faces.
By biological materials, you mean sheep testicles.
That's what I mean.
Wild Montana story, and I do like that we all found it independently, and you tried to tell me about it, and I already knew, and then we tried to tell Jami about it, and he already knew. I don't know. What do you find most interesting about this, Jami?
Well, I mean, it's obviously the makings of a great horror movie of some sort. I mean, you've got somebody who, it's certainly a 21st century crime when you somehow have figured out how to import materials so that you can genetically modify sheep to make them larger and more attractive to hunters, and then selling them to game farms. I mean, it's the kind of thing. The number of steps in here, I can't even fathom whether you can make money at this sort of thing. So,
well, I mean, there's always going to be a market for giant mutant beasts. I don't know. I'm kind of on this guy's side. We used to make things in this country.
There we go.
And I understand there's some traditional, morality and genetics, ethics and rules. But at what point can we just suspend those and let men have their hobbies?
I want to see what the outcome was going to be here.
Yeah, like how big could he go? Like what?
He'd been working on it for 10 years. I mean, this is a big, long project. This is magnus opus, and then they came and steal it from him at the last minute.
Do you think this guy had a wife, and was she ever explaining to her friends why her husband was unable to make their group dinners? Like, oh, he's working on that damn sheep again.
Up to his eyeballs and sheep testes.
Question for you guys. You're genetically engineering, in this case, a sheep, so we use that. How big is too big?
I mean, once it becomes like a predator to the grizzly bear, I would say. If it's in Montana.
How big would it have to be before the at the hunting farms he's essentially selling these to start asking questions like, what the hell?
Well, it's when they have to buy a larger gun size, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Hey, you're going to hunt my sheep, you're going to have to bring a different firearm.
We're going to need a bigger gun. And then lastly, if you guys could genetically engineer any animal to be any size, what would it be?
Oh, that's really putting me on the spot here.
Oh, I'm thinking pork.
Oh,
just
yeah.
a big old...
Economically, that makes a lot of sense.
We're just going to, one pork take care of, family of 12 or something.
Well, that's pragmatic, but it's not that much fun.
Montana stories are the best. I reported there for a year and a half, and most of the stories like this end up getting broken by some very young or very old reporter in some rural outpost.
Just a weekly guy.
And then it just takes off and they never get credit for it ever.
Probably not.
It happened to me. There was a guy at a...
That's how we know. There's a bitterness in his heart.
There was a bitterness.
There it is.
The grizzly bear, I've told you this before. There was a place where you could drive through and look at grizzlies, and this guy that worked there crawled in and was just smoking a joint in there with the grizzlies, and one of them attacked him, and he wanted workers' comp, and they were like, no, you were smoking pot in there with that grizzly bear. You don't get it.
Disqualified.
And I moved back. I don't know how that one ended.
If you did that in Washington where pot is legal, a different outcome to that claim?
There are still workplace rules, Aaron.
I don't know. Just talk to L&I.
They're reasonable folks. I'm sure they'll understand.
Yeah. I think I would make a slightly smaller Wolverine, like hamster size.
That was the animal I was thinking, but I was thinking larger for some reason.
A bigger Wolverine?
Because they're not dangerous enough already.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to take out the sheep?
Also, like a really big bird.
Yeah, that'd be cool to see.
Like a 8-foot crow or something.
Be hauling off hubcaps.
Yeah. All right. Any other preambles you guys want to hit before we get into our news items?
No, I'm just going to tell Jami something he already knows because he's listened before, that most of this is just a diatribe from Aaron and me trying to distance the newsroom from it. So I'm just going to do it off top. We're going to talk about the needle exchange first. And all comments are Aaron's that are pre-prepared.
You know what? That's fine. I'm used to this.
I know.
Every time we go to an event together, you also stand 5 feet away.
It's a firewall, man.
I don't know him. So this is the proposed ordinance that could disrupt Lewis County's only needle exchange program. This is the story. The story I've got linked and was working off of was from a few days ago. I haven't seen Mitchell's story yet.
Yeah, that's up on Cronline now from the hearing that took place yesterday. It was about an hour long. It had testimony in favor, testimony against, even some testimony was a little in between, just asking questions.
Yeah, and those hey, just asking questions comments are.
I mean, some of them were legitimately asking questions. It was fine.
Some were.
Yeah, and some were not.
This is the latest. Sean Swope wants you to see how Hardy's working move, not unlike Derek Zoolander in the coal mines.
I get that reference.
Yeah, good. Basically, there's been a ton of evidence to back up the needle exchanges and how they are effective and an overall health benefit to communities. They do tend to reduce diseases, reduce deaths, and other long-term illnesses that come along with using dirty needles. Whether or not you agree with the morality of using needle drugs, I think we can all safely say we're not needle drug users currently.
Speak for yourself, man.
Anyway, according to Sean Swope, this ordinance is necessary to combat the rise in opioid usage and deaths across the country. Evidence be damned. The whole thing presupposes that by having a needle exchange, more people are going to be doing drugs, which doesn't add up to me. I don't think having clean paraphernalia is the aha moment that determines if someone is going to inject heroin for the first time, or for that matter, the 100th time.
It is counterintuitive, though. I mean, that's something that Cole over at Gather Church led with on this story you're talking about with Mitchell, is that he understands why, just off top, beginning of the conversation, why, you might not think that way.
I could rant all day about it, and I have extensive notes.
You do have a lot of notes.
I'm going to skip most of them and encourage anybody who is interested in this story and wants to hear an objective person break it down in a long-form fashion to check out Mitch Guthrie's The Long Letter podcast. Mitch does a very nice job attacking this from perhaps a more level-headed way than maybe some of us podcasters would.
Well, his opinion's closer to yours, yes.
Yeah, but he also does a lot of homework.
Jami was on that podcast this week. Are you aware of that?
No.
You made
that
he
was.
podcast.
Yeah, he mentioned that.
Yeah.
Sure. I did listen to it. I was listening to him actually when he started because I really, really enjoyed. He does a series of interviews with people who are users, former users, but people who are in recovery from addiction, and it's very compelling because it is a real person telling a real story. There's no spin. And I've appreciated that as a source of input as far as like, okay, get my head around what this is and what it means. And it was very helpful for that. So I did listen to the one most recently as well. It was an
Almost
hour,
2 hours.
40 minutes.
Yeah, he went long on it. And he kept saying like, this is longer than I normally go. But I enjoyed it. I thought he did a great job.
He's got a really good tone and approach to it. That was the first whole one I've listened to. I've listened to snippets on other ones, but yeah, I enjoyed it too. I listened to it on deadline, I think right after the needle exchange thing, so it had some extra depth, the hearing. So, yeah.
Anyway, highlight from that podcast, I will say the exchange with Dr. Wiley, our county health professional, over Gather Church being a church. We haven't even dropped the name Gather Church yet, which runs the needle exchange. There was an exchange between Sean Swope and Dr. Wiley, our county health professional, over the church being a church, and Swope insisting that Jesus wouldn't approve of their work. That was pretty wild, and I felt embarrassing for the county.
He did say ministry. It's not a ministry, the needle exchange.
Okay.
A little different.
Yeah. I don't know. I also don't know how I feel about elected officials using their pulpit to tell people what Jesus would or wouldn't do.
I get where you're coming from on that.
Not a fan. Anyway, this issue was also previously discussed by the County Public Health and Human Services Advisory Board. That is a mouthful.
Yes, too much of one. I have to write it down in my crib notes whenever I even open the meetings up at the place because there's a bunch of letters in there, a bunch of words. But Public Health Social Services.
Okay. And we are lucky to have Jami here with us. You've been on the board for 4 years and the chair for the last year or so. Mm-hmm. And you guys meet monthly.
Correct.
And how was this sent to you guys, and what type of info did you get on it? And what is your role in this thing moving along?
Right. And the board is created to give a broader perspective, to have a bunch of specific expertise areas covered, I guess, in advising the county, because when the County Board of Health is the same as the county commissioners, and there's only 3 of them, then state law requires that there be an advisory board which would bring areas of expertise. So some of the members of our board are, they're representing homeless people in homeless situations. Some are representing health professionals. Some are representing mental health services. And so we have specific seats for specific expertise. And then we have some at-large ones. And so I got onto it actually because I was the president of the local free clinic, Health and Hope Medical Outreach, which is still doing a great job and a great service to the community. And it's in the context of that I actually met Cole, and I really like him. Mm-hmm. I mean, in terms of the work that he's doing and all of that, I mean, there were debatable points on that, but his earnest desire to help is where I first met him, because I was doing the same kind of thing with the free clinic. This board then takes its workload from the County Board of Health, which is the same as the county commissioners.
Now, I'm going to interject real quick. Yep. Has that ever seemed a little like we're just putting on a different hat and spinning our chair around to you? Because that's how it's always kind of come across to me.
I mean, I think in statute and in history, it probably existed where the county just was in charge of those things, and they didn't deprive them of those powers when county boards of health were created. They were given an option to create something else, and then more recently, they've said, well, if you're not going to create this special board of health, then at least have an advisory board. So we exist to fulfill a statutory obligation that the Board of Health has if they're going to be the county commissioners. And then our workload is essentially whatever they give to us. And we've done actually some fairly significant things in the last couple of years. The first couple of years I was on, it felt a little wheel spinny, but we did all of the development work on the Housing and Essential Needs Grant. We developed the criteria for evaluation. We interviewed the applicants. We made a recommendation, one that you commented on this podcast in the past.
I'm sure I did.
The selection of the county health officer, and the interviewing or development of the questions and criteria for that. Some of the criteria, not all that the county would have, because there are factors that we don't get into that the county still must address. We don't spend money. We don't decide how much something's going to cost, or we don't address liabilities and a number of things. So our area of expertise is not the whole range of things that a county commissioner or a board of health might need to comprehend as they do it. But we did get this issue handed to us fairly short notice, because as it was moving along, I think it was brought up at the county commissioners meeting or the Board of Health meeting that, hey, you've got an advisory board, why not see what they think? And so it did come to us to consider. We spent 2.5 hours talking through this issue. It was quite a challenge.
Was it contentious in that 2 hours, or I mean, is there fairly diverse opinions? Obviously?
There are very extremely diverse opinions on there. I feel pretty good about the way I ran the meeting, because when you're chairing a meeting, the point isn't to try to get something done. The point is to make sure that everybody gets heard, but the majority gets its way, and that you move along. And so, and I think we did a good job on that. And we didn't have explicit directions from the county as to what our deliverable was. And so it made it a little challenging because we had to guess what we were supposed to do and also come up with a product that we could actually, I mean, we could have sat and argued for hours about things. And as it was, we spent over 2 hours on it. But we started with some just thesis. We'd say, do we believe this? Do we believe that? And the first one, the top line, the highest level was, should a needle exchange exist in the county or not? And we had everybody seemed to be voting that, yeah, we were not saying that they should be banned altogether and the county shouldn't have that position. Great. Then we dialed it in a little bit more and we started asking some of the other questions, as we went along to try to figure it out. So we delivered to them really just a handful of thesis statements like this should happen. You shouldn't make regulations that would make it impossible for someone to operate a needle exchange, for example. But then we tried to articulate some of the things. What does the public care about this? Yeah. Well, the public cares about needle litter. The public cares about people who are in active addiction and their proximity to people that they're concerned about, children, schools, and those sorts of things. So some of those statements got in. And at some point, we kind of ran out of steam. Somebody said, listen, we've been here a while and let's get out of here. And we had to vote when they called for the adjourn vote, and we did. So we delivered things and then reported to them within a few days.
Okay. Do you feel like your input was included within the process after that point?
Well, because the process is not done, yes. And that was one of the things where it was interesting. I listened to the podcast and he was saying like, well, Jamie's a little naive to assume that the county is actually going to amend their thing. And I'm thinking, this is pretty complicated and a lot of people are going to speak and we're offering suggestions or recommendations that make some adjustments potentially. And even if you want to succeed in a policy endeavor, you certainly don't want to appear to be absurd in what you're doing. So I think that they did the right thing to kick it off a bit. I think there was enough things said at the last meeting where they felt like they needed to change some things. And I don't know what those changes will be, and maybe they'll go and sort of lobby each other and come up with, a solution that they agree on. But yes, they are going to be delaying, so I can't tell whether it makes a difference.
Okay. How receptive, you pointed out this is something I've commented on, in the past.
You've talked a lot of trash about advisory boards.
I haven't talked trash about the advisory boards. I have talked trash about the commissioner's general reception to their recommendations. And do you feel like that the recommendations are generally listened to and taken as serious input? There's been a couple of things that we've done. In the last process with the Housing and Essential Needs Grant, we really did the hard work, and that work was just moved through as the recommendation. The county health official, which is the one that you were concerned about, I knew that we were asked to look at a narrow facet, like what are the markers of professional excellence that this party would bring, which is not the same thing as, can we afford them? Do they represent the values of the community broadly? Are they in touch with what's going on? Do they read the Chronicle? I mean, that to me would have been one of the questions. Do they listen to News Dump?
We didn't ask them, right. I mean, we didn't ask them, do you read the Chronicle or not? Yeah. But it was definitely signaled by the county that was kind of one of the things that they wanted, was somebody that had real local connections. And some contractors from Vancouver who serve 6 counties was who they had before, and obviously they weren't ready to just continue that automatically. So in that case, they did not do what our numbers indicated. Here's the most qualified, which was the contractors from Vancouver. But they have other criteria, and maybe it was money, maybe it was the local connection and all of that, which we weren't asked to comment on, nor should we have been, because we don't have any expertise on how much money the county has. Now, in this more recent one...
Well, you could argue that the county also doesn't have very much expertise on how much money the county has. But I digress. Go on. Sorry to interrupt.
You do digress.
But generally speaking, I mean, if we're supposed to offer a product, but that product is not the policy solution, then I don't mind if they don't take it. Yeah. Because it's like, hey, we did what we were supposed to do. Now you have a big card on the table, but you got other cards on the table that you got to look at before you play your hand. So I was not offended by the behavior in anything that we have done as a board. And I think that it has been useful, what we've been working on.
You do have Dr. Wiley, and he was in your 2.5-hour meeting, right?
Yes.
What's his deal? Is he cool?
He is. He is just super sweet. He's as sweet as he seems, and I mean, he's a pediatrician by profession, so he is comfortable relating to children, which is really a strong social skill.
I can imagine.
If you can make a child listen, you can make anybody listen.
Yeah.
So yeah, he is, and he took this very seriously. He started talking to me weeks before, as far as, I'm needing to get up to speed on this. What should I be reading? What am I looking at? And what should we be doing? And so I have respected him for that. So I think, ironically, even though, let's say on the professional credential scale that we had put together, his work ethic on it has been, phenomenal. He treats this like it's his full-time job, and I don't think he's paid a full-time salary for it. In fact, I'm positive he's not.
That's cool. That's good to know.
We've seen the same health officer issue down in Cowles County just recently, and I think it was at least one of the same consultants, as far as a little bit of upheaval and them tossing it to their advisory board or their version of it down there and doing the same thing, trying to get local control.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move to yesterday morning's meeting. I know I listened to a lot of it. Schwartz, you listened to some of it?
Yeah, I think I listened to almost all of it.
There was some interesting stuff. Mark McHugh, a local pastor, took the pulpit, if you will, to call out Sean Swope for claiming to know what Jesus would want. I found that entertaining. I felt, based on what I listened to, that the testimony from people against the ordinance came from a lot of nurses and doctors and medical professionals and people with lived experience. They were very much against it. And I kind of felt that the testimony in favor of the ordinance had more simplistic points to make. None of it really seemed compelling to me beyond the general idea from the people for the ordinance was that drugs were bad. And it was kind of a high-level overview. And I feel like they could have done a little more homework.
Yeah, and I'm fairly agnostic on the subject. I'm new to it. It's addiction is a subject that this board that I'm on has taken up just in this year, and we're on month 3. And so I'm reading what I can and getting up to speed and everything. But here's where I think the ships are missing on this. Here's where there's ships passing in the night, because the professionals are at this micro level. Doesn't it make sense to reduce the transmission of, and here's the studies that show that when you give people clean needles, they're less likely to transmit communicable diseases. And that's true. The research is rock solid, and that's very clear, and that's a conversation to have about the practices of individuals in a community. But as a person with a 35-year history as a policy watcher, a political observer, I know that policymakers are maybe looking at a different level. It's the same as the decision on the health official. Yes, there is a series of professional checkboxes that you can deliver, but is there a larger issue? And I do think that on this issue, and actually, quite frankly, many policy issues, there are larger community-wide concerns that you want to reflect. So it may be that if you're wanting to reduce the transmission, this is a great way to do it. But it may also be that if you want to make your community moral statement, your community unfriendly towards drug addiction and the acceptability of drug addiction, that the policymakers may want a symbol that says, we are not friendly to this. We don't think that it's okay. We don't want to do this. And if you think about it, we've had these kinds of examples in our history as a country in a million years. Take marijuana use as one of the best examples. I mean, marijuana use, while it was illegal, was not very widely practiced. Now that it's legal, it is. Now, that's a real clear and clean, obvious one, but you take something like condom distribution. That's one that has been controversial in the past. Isn't it true that you're going to reduce unwanted pregnancies if you pass out condoms? Yes. Could it also be true that you're going to wink and nod towards explicit sexual behaviors that are going to produce babies by making all the adults hand out condoms freely and readily? So I don't know the extent to which a governing body's role is to put a mark down for these are the behaviors that we appreciate and encourage, and these are the behaviors that we want to discourage. And so if that's true, if that's what they want to do, then they're never gonna actually clash.
Yeah.
So Sean Swope doesn't have to prove that you're not actually reducing litter or you're not actually reducing the transmission. He could have to prove listen, we are going to have less drug use as a whole if our community is very stern about this. Let's go ahead and serve people with the help they need to get out of this situation. But our stance as a community is this is not acceptable. And there are lots and lots of other examples of things that as they get more acceptable, I mean, you can think about no-fault divorce. When no-fault divorce, it used to be you had to have a reason to have a divorce. And they said, well, that's causing a lot of acrimonious litigation. We don't want to do that. And so they say, well, let's make it so that you can just kind of go in and turn in papers and you got no-fault divorce. You do get more divorces in that situation because the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
And people do adapt to the framework that they're in, whatever the fences happen to be. Now, I understand that an addict is an addict is an addict until they make the personal decision to change, and they've got to reach the end of their rope. But it's still the case that you could have more rope in a community where it's like, we're going to make sure Narcan's available to everybody, and we're going to make sure that anything that you could possibly need is available to you. So I understand it. I'm not sure where I am as far as whether it's good policy. You know, how does it compare to reducing bloodborne diseases? And by the way, anybody who gets AIDS or hepatitis is going to probably be treated by our public system, and we are all going to help carry the cost of that.
Exactly.
So I have a financial interest in not having that happen.
Yeah.
So that
was an excellent explanation, Jamie, and I appreciate it. I really do. That's like the best analysis I've heard so far, and it's not just because you're sitting here in the room. I really appreciated that. And I think like an example might be when I go to a park with my kid and I see needles, I'm not immediately thinking, well, thank God those needles are there, because that means that there's been a great reduction in passage of various illnesses. My first thought is I wish there were much fewer needles here.
Right. And it may be that a Sean Swope opinion does reflect a supermajority of the community. And so is he obligated by the principles of democracy to reflect those values in the policy that he adopts? It's fascinating how people turn back and forth as to whether you're a democratically elected, you should do what the people want. Oh, but sometimes the people aren't bright enough to know what they want, and you should listen to the few people who are in the practice of doing something in a microcosm. And it is a balancing trick. You want wise leaders who make wise decisions, but it isn't always democratic and isn't always listen to the experts.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I come down. Like, in my opinion, being a good politician and a good leader of your community is knowing the difference and being able to say, like, hey, here's the evidence we've got. And maybe sometimes you need to stand up for the largest swath of the population that says, like, well, any kind of needle exchange is just bad news. And you're like, well, actually, we have this evidence here. Like, yeah, I understand. It seems that way. And it seems to me it would be more impressive and more promising if our commissioners exhibited a little bit of critical thinking to look at all sides of it. And it kind of feels like this policy to me feels like it was cooked up with targeting one group in mind and then kind of worked backwards from there. And I could be off on that. That's just the general gist I get.
There are plenty of people that are calling that out as an element of it, and I always hate that. I mean, I'm like a policy purist. I think policy making is like computer programming. You shouldn't your motives and who you like and don't like shouldn't matter. And everybody's like, well, this affects Gather. I'm like, I don't care who it does or doesn't affect, because in 100 years there'll be a different group. Or what if I wanted to start a thing, but I want to set a bucket of needles out, clean bucket of needles out on every street corner? Is that okay? Well, no, that's not okay. We don't want that. Okay, so we know that there's some public interest involved here, so it's not off the table. Now, if it's only because we don't like a certain actor and we want to punish them in some way, I hate that stuff. To me, as a policy purist, it's like, no, if that just makes me recoil. Now, and that may be what's going on. I mean, that's we had a lot of questions at our own board. Why is the mobile a problem?
Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the biggest questions that was asked at the hearing and in our group. And is it a problem only because that's Gather's primary way? Well, a lot of the ones use mobile, so it's not like it's only them. They could go out of business and somebody else could come in and they would say, our best practice here would be to use a mobile clinic. And so, but yes, if it is targeted, if it is about retaliation, but some of the stuff coming back at Swope is also that way. Swope's for it, so I know I'm against it. I'm not even going to think about what the arguments are, because people do team up really quickly in the policy world, and it makes it difficult to sort out what's the right thing to do. So I'm not saying that either of them has the right answer, but it's not like team A or team B. Both of them can be wrong in my view.
If I were to provide you with evidence in the form of a New York Post opinion piece, would that sway you at all either way?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm a big Post man. You know that about me, Eric. I was in the secret readers club at one point. Just for like a week.
And I would also be swayed by the gentleman who stood and gave a very, very compelling testimony about his own experience. I worked with these people. That was good too. They helped me. They picked me up from jail and took me to a place away from where I would have gotten more trouble. I mean, very, very compelling stuff. That's a social good. That's a positive of the policy. Why wouldn't we want that to happen?
You used the word agnostic, and I feel this very similar on the subject, just for probably some of the same reasons. You're a little closer to it than I am. But I do wish that we could approach it like a lot of these meetings, these big public hearings on contentious topics, it's like one side 100% sees the other side as a villain. And I know it's human nature in a lot of ways, but it would be so much more productive if you could, you could start from one side towards Swope, like, he's not evil. He's just disagrees with me. What do we have in common? Maybe there would be a little bit of like what the advisory board had it sounded like a really engaged discussion followed by kind of an
I was pretty happy that nobody came out of that meeting hating me.
Good.
Right. And I have. It is wide the range of folks. Everybody felt like that the process worked and it was fine, and it helped that I didn't care. I mean, I went into that even more agnostic, because I was like, I'm 4 days into this subject, and so yes, you're exactly right that if you can put the problem on the table and sort it out, and I would say, one of the things that Swope and crew could do is spend more time on. What's the public telling me? I mean, if Swope said, "Listen, I'm getting hundreds of people who are seeing needles. I'm getting pushback from people who are like, why are we tolerating it?" He could make his case that way. He could also make his case like, we want to be a community like these other communities that are not tolerating things, and they're getting a different result in terms of street drug use. And I mean, if that's true, and he owes it to his opinion to suss that out and to make the case and to convince people, bring them along. Don't spring a solution on people, but lead a parade rather than just a last minute, ta-da, here's the solution that I've decided.
Yeah.
It also feels a little bit to me like, and this was brought up as well, like you're responding to a giant building that's on fire, and the responders get there and they're very much focused on like moving this car away from it before it catches fire, but not fighting the actual fire. And I mean that by fentanyl. Like we're spending a lot of time on a declining trend right now. Not that those people aren't suffering and it's not important, but it feels a little bit like putting together a marijuana task force in 2024 on the law enforcement.
Are you talking about the sheriff's office again?
I'm not. I'm not. The shoe fits, I guess. It's just, I don't know. Fentanyl only came up a few times, and that was when it was used to say, this is a real problem right now.
It is also like, it bothers me, and I realize, I have some biases here, but that Sean Swope and the commissioners will go all out on something like this, which to a lot of people seems like it targets Gather Church, and we want to hold them more accountable. And it feels like all the frustrations with any drug issues in the county just get kind of lumped on them. Like Gather Church does good work, but like their job is not to out and out prevent people from ever doing drugs or to prevent drugs from occurring and being in the community. We have other agencies who draw a ton of funding from the very county that Swope and the commissioners oversee that have that job. And I wish that they would dedicate some of their bandwidth for demanding accountability and focus it on some of those.
Right. And let's say that the county decided our position is to set the bar that we are going to be stern about drug use. I mean, it wouldn't just be the needle exchange you'd be looking at. As you're saying, there would be other things that you would do. Like, what's our comprehensive approach to really, and you would have to include, we're going to get people help. I mean, we can't say shame unless you're going to buy people bus tickets, and there are communities that do that.
Yeah,
like, hey, you know what? How we're going to clean up our community? We're going to send you to another community, which to me is not a solution. That's like a cheat.
Especially when you have locals that are suffering. It's like you can't.
Well,
really
we did just get
some
new hydrogen buses, but we'll get to that.
That's true.
Anyway, shall we move on? This was a lively discussion.
It was.
Well, and the one thing that I would say as far as this goes, just to wrap it, is, right now we're talking about needle exchanges and the best practices. I mean, it do include safe injection sites or providing clean drugs. I mean, so if you were to say, how can we be more accommodating and create more opportunities for contacts with folks, it goes even farther. I mean, you can get, should we provide dormitories and drug halls? I mean, at some point, it's absurd.
Yeah.
And same if you go to the other extreme, it's absurd. So if we're deciding to move the mark from needle exchange programs back to where it was just 4 years ago, because it's not really like this is an eternal practice that somehow is we're going to overturn 100 years of history.
Yeah.
So policymakers got the prerogative to try and figure out where to put that line. And I'm saying if you were just to rely on the evidence, then we really should be having safe drugs administered to people in clean shoot-up sites, which of course the public would no way support.
Right.
So moving that line a little bit is kind of obviously what Swope is looking towards. Anyway, we'll see what happens.
And that's, God, I hate to keep this going. And that's one thing you can look at, but you also get into a chicken and egg situation where we didn't have a needle distribution site, and then the drug problem followed it. The drug problem was there, and this was addressing a symptom of that.
Oh, yeah. And the theory that I imagine that the Swope position would have would be, it's making it worse when you wink and nod at it. And I don't know whether that's true or not. I don't know how you would even research that or document it, but there are communities that do that, and there are communities that go the other way. So
yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Next item, shall we go to, you guys want to talk about fish? Smelt fishing will likely soon require a license in Washington State.
I am opposed.
A license will probably cost between $8 and $12.
Too expensive.
Does that mean that they're going to actually let you go smelting? Because isn't it extremely rare that they even let you do it?
They did 2 this year. There's many years where they don't do it at all. But usually it's 1.
What counted as the 2? Like a half day, I think.
Well, there was, it's a few hour openings at a time, several hour openings.
You sent Cody or Ridley out?
We sent Cody the first time, and people were actually getting their limits, and then Ridley went out more recently, and there were just no smelt. One guy had 2, another guy had 14, and most people didn't get anything at all. At least in the Cowlitz, that's where the run was open. I saw the Lewis River was just absolutely chock full of them. But
up until now, the only animals that could be harvested without a license were crawfish, carp, bullfrogs, and freshwater smelt. My question...
Oh, I've got an answer for this.
Are you people out there harvesting bullfrogs?
Yeah. What? Toledo Cheese Days Frog Jump. Once every year, they go out and harvest bullfrogs.
Well, I know about that. New Wacom Golf Course?
Yeah.
But that's for sports purposes. That's for sporting purposes. They're going to release them back into the wild when they're done, I'm sure.
Maybe. Frog legs are pretty good.
Your Southern is coming out.
Never had frog legs before?
I never wanted frog legs before.
They're not great.
No.
They're not great. I had them once. I didn't get them again.
My question, is there any chance this extends to sea mammals? I know you feel strongly about this.
I think I'm still in favor of a sea lion hunting permit. I think that'd be,
Hunt them
be
for
great.
Sport and purpose.
Just like mount them on the wall, big old sea lion head.
It's just the
Well,
dumbest
you're triggering
taxidermy.
me now because...
That was
Yeah, I know. So there was legislation prepared, a budget proviso prepared to provide the funding that the state needs. The state actually went through the long process to get the permit from the feds about how to harvest. You got to move them a few times before you can actually kill them or whatever. It's absurd what you have to do. And it's very expensive. And so they have the ability to do it, but they didn't have the funding for it. That's their excuse for not doing it. I suspect there's more to it. Fine, we're going to give you a specific budget proviso, and the Senate actually adopted that as part of their budget. House Democrats were like, we don't really like the idea of killing anything. So
we talked about this last week.
It went away.
Yeah. Those Yankee fans over in the majority.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
We had a lot of fun with that last week.
I thought you're not supposed to use slurs on this program.
Aaron took the side of the sea lion last week.
Look, I'm saying the sea lions have every bit as much a right to the salmon as the people do. What are we doing here? You don't own the fish.
They're California sea lions.
That's right.
Man.
Invasive
When people
species.
grow tusks and fins, they can argue with me about the legality of who gets the salmon. I don't know.
I think the remedy would be to let the tribes handle it.
Yeah, why not? Or you're going to think differently once they get up the Skookumchuck and they're like on your property.
I will become their king.
There was a seal in Oakville not too long ago. It's not too far from Oakville to the confluence of the Skook. So.
Next item, Lewis County Transit gets first hydrogen fuel cell vehicle in the Pacific Northwest. Executive Director Joe Clark said it's the first hydrogen fuel cell vehicle in the Pacific Northwest. Oh, you took that right for the headline, didn't you?
I did.
They're very quiet and they're emissions free, so they make a good city bus. Sounds like they're probably super easy to fix, too. They should have another one in May and a third in September. These new hydrogen fuel cell buses are longer than the diesel buses and can carry more passengers. Cool thought. I didn't realize capacity with our buses was an issue.
Yeah, I thought that too when I read that line. But not yet. Once people find that they're running on hydrogen, however.
And they're so quiet.
Yeah.
People
don't ride the bus. They're too loud, man.
Yeah, that's it.
They're too loud and too narrow.
Will we be able to create a circular economy around these where the people move to a place on the bus route so they can take the hydrogen bus to their job at the hydrogen factory out at the old TransAlta? Shout out our benefactor, old man TransAlta, for all his gifts. And then take the bus home all in one hydrogen-based economic circuit. Is there any chance
that's the dream,
either
man.
of you?
That sounds like an Inception concept, or maybe a perpetual motion machine, right?
You got to start somewhere, yeah. We can all dream.
In my greatest failure, so Owen Sexton, the reporter, got a call on his way into work, like 3 hours off a deadline, saying, "Hey, this hydrogen bus is here." So that's why we had him stop by, get a photo. We kind of rushed it. So the version you looked at didn't have the price in it. We followed it up.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was wondering why there wasn't a price in it. I was like, boy, that seems like square one that I wanted to know.
Well, yeah, we followed it up real quick. I went and tagged it online with it. So the hydrogen fueled bus is going to cost you about $1.2 million per bus.
And I think the state gave them the $5 million. Is that what
they got grants.
So they got money from the state for it.
Yep, and then a regular old diesel bus, narrow loud boy, if you will, are $800,000. But Joe Clark, of course, says that though the initial cost is cheaper, diesel buses cost on average $300,000 annually to run and maintain, and hydrogen buses cost on average $225,000. So he surmises that over time,
long game.
with life expectancy of 12 years of service, there's going to to be a nearly $1 million savings.
You factor in amortization,
wind
depreciation.
chill. You also have to take in global warming. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. The buses sound, they're expensive. I guess they're cool.
I continue to have no opinion on hydrogen. I don't know anything about
anything.
I'm not a scientist. Not enough to argue about it yet.
Well, I read the article and it made me want to find it and write it.
Yeah.
Just to say that I had.
That's how I felt about our first news item about that genetically modified sheep.
That's so true.
Next item. Hash. Centrally to be featured on America's Best Restaurants. This is a internet show. It's coming to Hash on April 1st. They'll show off their best food and talk about the restaurants placed in the community. My initial thought was April 1st, a television program is coming to interview you for a big spot. Nothing suspicious about that. Have you guys been to Hash? Thoughts on Hash?
I haven't, but I have not heard anyone say that their food is less than great.
I have. And it was good. I mean, it's a diner feel, of course, the way they've got it set out. It's hearty, shall we say.
Yeah.
It's nice to have no offense to any of the previous businesses there, but it seems like they're getting more of a foothold than the last few that were in that.
Well, you just miss Cocoa Nuts.
I do. I do miss that
tropical bar.
I do miss that place. Had some good times there.
I've eaten at Hash several times. After their weekend breakfast is great. The lounge is open early, so you can go in there and get a Bloody Mary and a big old plate of eggs Benedict or whatever. It's I've only had breakfast there, not lunch or later afternoon foods, and I found it to be very good, and the service quite good.
It also creates the local newspaper situation where, random show comes to interview random local business, so we go take pictures of them as they take pictures and video of. It's just a very
news inception situation.
It is. It really much is.
Well, I put these notes together on, I don't know, several days ago. What have we missed since then that you would like to throw in, Schwartz?
I don't know. It was a deadline day, so my head is still kind of spinning along with the wheel here. We have probably a People's Champion of the Week possibility with Coal Creek Tree Farm winning the Lewis County's 2024 Tree Farm of the Year. It's the Madsons. Everybody loves them. I mean, the first news item on the list here in this edition is Governor signs 19th District lawmakers bill to study electric vehicle battery fires. That's a Jeff Wilson piece of legislation. Yeah, there's lots of good stuff on there.
What is studying battery fires? Is that just like you fire some up and you go check them out? And you're like, hell yeah.
I think this is this is asking the State Patrol to take a look at it. Is that right? I think. Let's see.
Emergency services are concerned about electric vehicle fires because they aren't handled in the same way as other things.
They rage, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You probably got to put them out with you can't just dump water on those.
It takes significantly more water, yeah. And so what are the best practices? How is it done? Is there any training on it? What do we do if this is going to become the norm? So it's kind of a get ready for things to come deal.
I did chuckle when Mitchell wrote about this one time, and he introduced Jeff Wilson not as the senator from the 19th District, but as Chevrolet Bolt owner Jeff Wilson of Longview. Which is true. There's a picture of him and everything.
Any other news items before we take the break?
No, that's fine. We can maybe do a rundown at the end if I find anything interesting. Oh, I will. There is one. I fell 4 months behind on restaurant inspections, and so yesterday I had enough. I didn't get out of my seat for 4 hours, because I didn't want to lose my place. And they come to us handwritten from the health department.
Oh,
and so we have to pull the notes off of that. It's not as easy as just scanning it in. So it's the longest food inspections report you're ever going to see, starting in late December and going through last week. And we've included all the perfect scores, which is a lot. I thought it was literally every eatery in Lewis County as I was doing it, and then I've thought of a lot of them that weren't in there. So
I have to ask, what did you have for lunch today?
What did I have? It's not a good. I had McDonald's today.
So they were not...
No, they were on there. They did well. They did well. They were on those. This doesn't... I've long held the opinion that if you see a restaurant on here that gets dinged up really bad, that is the safest time to go eat there because the issues have just been dealt with.
Just like the safest day to fly on a plane is the day after a...
Yeah. I would recommend taking the food inspections list, starting with the most points against a business and visiting in order all the way and descending till you get down to the perfects.
What, do you think everybody eats fast food as much as you?
No, this isn't just fast food. This is fine dining. This is this is everything. It's from Packwood, clear all the way to PL, Toledo, all the way up to Centralia. I don't think there's anything north of that.
I don't want to issue any free ads, but sir, have you considered a grocery store?
There's grocery stores on this list as well, sir.
Jesus Christ, they came for everybody.
No, I let them seriously pile up. No, I mean, Safeway's on here 4 times because they get an inspection for the bakery, for the sushi, for the Chinese food. They got 5 of them. I think they passed them all too, in case you were wondering.
Okay.
Fuller's is not on this list, so maybe they will be on a future one.
I'm sure they are running a clean ship over there like Fuller's.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jeff and Julie from Fairway Lanes.
Jeff and I met Jacek of Summit Funding at our bowling center, so when we fell in love with this community and it was time to relocate, we knew we would be calling Summit Funding.
They understand that everyone has a unique situation when buying a home.
He had already helped 2 of our employees get into their own homes. The Summit Funding team exceeded our expectations. It was a seamless experience with great communication from his whole team.
Thank you to Summit Funding for making our buying experience special and memorable.
All right, we're back from the quick break. We're moving into segments. First up is Tales from the Takes page. And first of all, we have a column from Julia McDonald, who headlined Irish Citizenship Offers New Take on St. Patrick's Day Celebration. This is a very wholesome column out of Julie. She got her Irish citizenship. Saying Irish citizenship is a real mouthful.
It's difficult.
She celebrated with a wholesome St. Patrick's Day with friends and cooked goods. Sounded really nice.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. Apparently, you can become an Irish citizen under the right circumstances with the right help for less than $1,000.
Really?
So she did. I also thought it was very sweet that she mentioned to her son that she was interested in pursuing this, and she was like, "Yeah, it's $1,000 though," and I guess he just instantly PayPal'd her $1,000, which
that's cool.
is a very strong son move.
Would you do that if your mother was like?
But no.
I'm sure if I mentioned that to my son, he'd be like, "Oh, great! So you're moving there then? I'll send the money over now."
You like the John McCroskey, as a big John McCroskey fan that I know you are. He had one today. It wasn't really political, which is rare.
Surprised you didn't mention this before now.
That's usually his mode. The title is Tech Advances Come with Trade-Offs of Privacy and Freedom. And as I read this part, I almost sent it to you, but I was like, no, I'll just read it to him on here. There's no doubt technology has made lives more convenient, but with each advancement comes additional risk. My phone seems eager to listen to me and provide unsolicited ads based on my conversation when it's around. I've tried banishing it to the other room, but the darn thing tells my laptop to tell the refrigerator to contact the microwave to let me know how it feels about it. Even my GPS in the car listens to me, oftentimes chiming in to conversations we are having. I didn't know people still had GPS in their car. I thought everyone transitioned over to the old smartphone.
Do you think McCroskey's GPS is just like telling him where he usually goes? That's what mine does. I get in the car at 4 o'clock on a weekday, and it's like, oh, would you like to go to a Barney's? And I'm like, I'm going to the Chronicle.
You son of
a... I'm glad John McCroskey took on big AI. He took on big tech rather than...
Richard Stride, I was going to mention earlier, and I don't want to dive back into it, but he did testify in favor of the needle exchange ordinance. Mm-hmm. He has a column today about the last acceptable form of prejudice. Any guesses as to what that is?
Is it against the Irish?
Ageism.
Oh, well, yeah.
The answer is ageism. I actually thought the column was pretty good, and... one thing he did note in there that I did question as a middle-aged man was he said that older people tend to be a lot more accepting of others. Do you find that to be accurate?
I disagree with the entire premise of this. The two guys running for president are both damn near 80 years old. Like, what are we talking about?
I was trying to get to that. It was a fun column though.
Yeah, I'm sure it was great.
It's there.
Speaking of things that are almost 80 years old, how's your roof?
I mean,
is it under the weather?
It's under the weather. Yeah.
You should log on to your internet provider browser and visit www.theroofdoctor.com.
Or just talk to your smartphone. It'll call them for you,
that's
right?
True.
It's always listening, going to make that happen.
Yeah, I bet your smartphone has recommended the Roof Doctor to you several times, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Jamie, you got a nice roof?
I do metal roof, actually.
Oh, look at you.
Right. You do it up front, and then it's good forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Roof Doctor can also provide a metal roof if you so desire.
You know, if you wanted to find out how much money you're saving with the roof, you could ask the Roof Doctor to come out for a free estimate to find out how much it would have cost to replace your roof.
Well, yeah. And actually, now that I think about it, I have the misfortune of having skylights, which my builder people said, don't ever have skylights, don't do skylights. And on occasion, they do weep a little bit. And so maybe a Roof Doctor could do some patchwork for me and cover those up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure they would be thrilled. If you need to speak to the Roof Doctor locally, call them at 360-736-0246. You can also reach them at 360-516-4571. Of course, visit theroofdoctor.com. And are we throwing the discount code in there?
No, I don't think we should.
You don't want to mention code News Dump for half off your next roof?
No. His Cody's was the first roof is on the house, which you can get out of very easily.
Yeah, that was a good bit by Cody.
Good.
All right, People's Champion of the Week. I threw 3 nominees on there. Andy Bowerly, Tenino band director, won an award.
He won 2 awards, pair of awards.
So I have a fun Andy Bowerly story. Back when I used to cover sports, he has been the band director for quite a while, and he was always great about the Tenino bands would play like more modern songs. Traditionally, pep bands play, like something from 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever. And Bowerly was really good about turning around songs that just hit the radio quickly. And so I had complimented him on that, and he told me that whenever I showed up to cover a game in Tenino, he had a little surprise for me. So I got out to cover a game, and at halftime, the band played Lou Bega's Mambo No. 5 just for me, and then he presented me with a copy of the sheet music, which had my name on it. I was like, you know what? That's a hell of a nice thing.
It was a really nice thing.
Yeah. So
they put on a great show out there between that and who's their announcer? Don't they share an announcer with the Huskies?
Dave Montgomery. Yeah. He took over for... Hamilton. I forgot his first name.
It doesn't matter. I'm just saying they've got like the the great man on the mic, the great band. Must
Yeah,
be a
tonight
great
they
place
put on
to
a good
take
show
a
out there.
game. Yeah.
Gotta say, a little known fact, I was a band geek in Tenino.
Really?
Yes. Gary Calkins was my band teacher, a
Okay.
Centralia guy. And so I spent some time carrying stuff to and from sports events.
What would you play?
Well, I didn't play a real instrument. I played drums.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's the coolest of the
It
instruments.
is the coolest of the instruments and super easy, but don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
It's not true. People with rhythm think it's super easy. People without rhythm know the truth.
What's going on there?
I've tried to do it like just on my steering wheel in Bowers, just like stop it.
Next item. 3 puppies inside vehicle that went off cliff near White Pass last week have been recovered. I thought the rescuers of this deserved a little hat tip.
They did rappel all the way down there. It was the family of the gentleman from Missouri who crashed off of the pad, basically off of a cliff, and had 3 dogs in the vehicle with him, and they recovered all 3 of them alive over the next few days. One of them was the family wanted to go see where it happened, and they were looking down there, and they thought it was a crow, and then one of them was like, "That's not a crow. That's the other dog."
Jeez.
It was just kind of wandering around down there. I mean, I would think that's like prime eagle bait up there, like little puppies, but no, it was a little heartwarming.
And then the last one I've got is Lewis County Drug Court graduate is preparing a free Easter meals in Centralia for anybody and everybody. This is, I want to get the name right,
Leah Rader.
Leah Rader. She always puts this on, and it's a very cool program.
I'm going to choose her. Not that we ever actually vote democratically on this. We're going to have a follow-up story. Somebody over the weekend, actually I think it was Sunday night into Monday, threw a rock through the front of that business and went in and ransacked it a bit. So we're going to follow up with her, hopefully. Owen was working on that and talk about that. She's, like you said, she does the free meals on every holiday. Pretty sure it's all out of her own pocket. She just uses the location to hand it out. And I think that's pretty cool.
And drug court is one of those things that all sides in the needle exchange agree is a good thing.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. Remember, I said it was the Predator meme, the 2 hands. Like we can agree that this is good. This is working.
Sirens banger of the week. There's a couple interesting ones. 3 subjects were reportedly, quote, doing drugs on Grand Avenue on March 16th. An officer contacted 3 people, quote, smoking cigarettes in the area. Narc alert. That's
the next one's my favorite. A caller in Shales reported the quote hoodlums are back out, referring to a group of 8 to 10 juveniles who were quote rapping with swear words and climbing on the roof of a structure at the park. And I only found it funny because I filled in a little bit for Emily on Sirens when she was gone, and this person really is having a problem with these kids.
just hates those kids hanging out at the park.
And they might be up to no good, but like when you read the same thing every day, it's just like you're imagining he's just peering out the window and he's just like, those damn kids are back having fun in the park with their swear words and the rap.
They're out there with their spin records. Come on. Do you want to talk about Shayless Outfitters?
Of course, I want to talk about Shayless Outfitters, and I won't bury the lead on this one, Aaron. The Easter sale begins. It begins March 21st, which I believe is tomorrow, and you can pick up a copy of the Chronicle.
Or today if you're listening on Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. There are 4 full-page ads with all the deals. The one I know you're going to be interested in, Aaron, you're going to be able to get $50 off a Glock during this sale.
Oh.
In the theme of Easter. The sale goes through April 3rd. Yeah. It goes through April 3rd.
You got to defend myself against a genetically modified Easter bunny.
If you're trying to get an Easter basket together for the kids, Shales Outfitters is very proud of their new Lego land, just a full wall of Legos.
They got Legos over there now?
It's like 5 shelves high, looks like an entire row. I can see in this picture there are some that my kids don't have yet. They won't be getting. Lego's too expensive, gifts only. They're also going to have a Trago demo on, there's going to be...
Traeger?
Traeger, I'm sorry. March 23rd from 11 to 2 p.m. Free Easter Bunny photos on March 22nd and March 29th from 4 to 6, and March 23rd, 24th, and 30th from 2 to 5 p.m.
Okay.
We didn't get a chance to go over there to get our photos in the Love Shack during Valentine's Day.
I think Easter is a perfect day to repent for that.
We could go over there for a nice News Dump staff photo.
Yeah.
Cody in his Sunday best. Just go on over there. There's just loads of deals. The big theme being on Easter, if you're trying to build that perfect basket, just takes one stop. Unless you want to buy him a roof, you could go to the Roof Doctor, put a little gift certificate in there. But otherwise, you should go to Shales Outfitters.
All right, great. Where is it?
Materials. I don't have to, everyone knows where it's at. Come on. You just drive to Chehalis and it's there. You'll see it.
Visit
It's there.
cnboutfitters.com to learn more online or give them a call at 360-748-3337. Of course, they also offer all your fishing licenses, so if smelt become on the menu, you can get those there too.
It's at 1757 North National Avenue in Chehalis, open 7 days a week, Monday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 7, Sunday, 9 to 5:30 p.m.
Do you guys want to hear some Facebook comments of the week?
I never do, and you always read them anyways.
On the show that's coming to Hash, somebody said, too bad they can't include Centerville or Judy's, both locally owned and around longer than Hash, which is like, calm down. And then somebody responds, why would a media company want to showcase traditional American food that goes against the new trend of society? Unfortunately, that's where we are. What the fuck are you talking about?
I enjoy the traditional American food, but I agree. I don't want to lose the rest of it.
I mean, you can just go get American food at Hash. It's not like they're serving
No, I think that's
baguettes.
I think that's what he's saying is he was responding to someone mad that they highlighted Hash. I was a little surprised by that.
Just the implication that Hash is like some woke foreign food. Are you kidding me?
They are from Olympia.
You can get drunk there at 8 a.m. What are you talking about? It's fantastic. And then, it was mostly just the comments about how the food is bad and the service is worse and they should cover some other restaurant, which is exactly what happens anytime any restaurant gets any attention.
There's a few like local businesses and outlets that it doesn't matter how many times you like highlight them on social media. They are the most popular. Like Hash blows up every time. I don't know why that is. They got a very big following. I put Sweet Dough Cookie Co. right in there. You drop a little Sweet Dough Cookie Co. news. It's going to go wild. People love their
Sweet Dough Cookie Co.
They do. They just love it. And Hash is there. So I don't want to just highlight the hate as if that was the only thing. There were lots of folks talking about how much they enjoyed it.
I will probably go have breakfast at Hash on Sunday morning.
They should be a sponsor. We could talk about Hash food. We could do the podcast at Hash.
I would love that. Their lounge is lovely. Let's see. And then on the hydrogen bus, there was a lot of comments on this.
We could have headed it off with a more, comprehensive report. So, I'll wear that on the chin.
This commenter says, that's a huge bus. No one other than the homeless with a free voucher will ever ride. Public transportation has never been financially solvent on its own without subsidies. No shit. That's why it's publicly funded. Otherwise, it's a taxi. Anyway.
We have those.
There is no way, not ever, would I ride on a moving explosion waiting to happen. Simple science. Hydrogen meets oxygen equals boom. But you all enjoy. Ma'am, what do you think powers your internal combustion engine? It's gasoline, and it is also quite flammable. This lady just watched the clip of the Hindenburg in middle school and was like, nope, couldn't be me.
Not fooling me.
And then this last commenter, Lewis County is going woke little by little. If we don't stoop it, we are going to be like Olympia in Seattle.
He always likes to call out their typos. He likes to shame them for not being as good at grammar as he is.
I mean, this yes. A hydrogen bus means Lewis County is becoming too woke.
We, I think I talked about it last week, but Ridley, our new photographer, got added to Facebook, and the first time she started getting the notifications rolling in, because it's kind of difficult to figure out how to turn them off.
Yeah.
It's just like, why are people like this? She's just so innocent right out of school. And I was like, I try not to read them. When we get like those bots that drop into our comments a lot, and I hate that. They're just trying to send you to a malicious link of some sort. So I'll often like gaze at the comments in a way where it's blurry, and I can not read the hateful things, but spot the links and then delete them that way.
You know what probably happened to McCroskey is he clicked on one of those links.
Could have been.
Oh my God, it was a tragic video. Like, oh no, they got me. Jami, it has been lovely having you on.
Glad to be here.
Anything else you want to add before we enter the closing out portion of this? We've gone a little long.
You could remind us when listeners who enjoyed actually hearing good discourse on the news dump can listen to you.
I always take the opportunity when offered. Yeah, no, I am on KELA AM 1470, and you can listen to it at KELAM.com. And the phone number 330-5352. It's a call-in show on Friday morning and on Monday mornings from 8:30 to 9. So I wait to hear the phones ring. I mean, I offer news and commentary as well. But you can listen to it after the fact at that KELAM.com. Just look for my name there. And is It's an honor to get to be with you guys. Honestly, I've listened to this podcast for so long and really enjoyed getting to see behind the news because I got really interested in it when I started having to do some of it on my own. And so getting to see that there's real people doing it is a delight.
Was it everything you hoped it would be?
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah.
I really appreciate you coming along and being a good sport through all of our a myriad of stupid comments. Schwartz, anything else you want to add?
No, that's all I got.
All right. In closing, we're sponsored by Summit Funding, Shayless Outfitters, and The Roof Doctor. Send us an email at chroniclenewsdump@gmail.com and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts if you feel like it. If not, you know what? That's cool too. Thank you. We'll be back next week.